Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
Dear son, I don't know how to begin this, or if I should even be writing it. Maybe I'm a fool for thinking words can fix anything. But these days, words are all I have. So if you're reading this, I hope you're older, wiser, able to see more than my flaws. There's so much to explain, yet so little worth saying anymore. And maybe I shouldn't drag you into this, but I need you to understand one thing. It isn't your fault. None of it ever was. I still picture that empty space on the bathroom shelf. A cheap piece of white metal you could buy at any hardware store. The shelf is chipped at the corner, the paint peeling off. It used to hold her lotions, the ones that smelled like strawberries and cream. She had a certain way of arranging them. Always neat, always in rows. Each bottle turned label forward. Yesterday I walked in, and the entire row was gone. The shelf was empty except for a single hair tie left behind, like a silent condemnation. That's when I first realized something was missing. Something more than just lotion. That was the day everything started crumbling. Because I knew, when someone clears out that space, it's not about reorganizing. It's about moving something valuable. Maybe the heart, maybe the guilt, to a secret location. I couldn't get it out of my head. Stood there in the bathroom, water dripping from the faucet. The faucet I tried fixing at least 6 times last year. Never got it right. And I wondered, where the hell did the lotions go? Why remove them if she's still here? That was the seed that crawled into my mind, and it kept me awake all night. I reached for the old calendar that hangs near the kitchen. It's dog-eared and scribbled over with years of appointments, birthdays, random notes. I used to draw small crosses on it each day she and I spent together. Little marks of longevity. 27 years. Not all perfect, but at least consistent. A cross for each day that I woke up next to her, each day we had coffee together, each day I believed we were in this marriage for good. The crosses don't mean I was happy every single day. They mean I was trying. Marking my presence, marking us. A vow renewed daily in pen. Now, each cross feels like a question I can't answer. When did she vanish from me? She's still physically here. That's the strangest part. I hear her stirring in the bedroom, rummaging in the closet, turning on the shower. But something about her presence has changed, like she's become a ghost in my own house. A ghost with secrets. Friday morning. Always a rush. She's brewing coffee. I'm running late for the workshop. That particular morning, the sun was shining too bright, almost intrusive, and I felt unsettled for reasons I couldn't name. I saw something on the kitchen table. A little rectangle that looked out of place. A business card. On it, *, meet you again on Friday. * signed. * Brian. *, and I remember how my hand froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips. I asked, "What is this?" She, Catherine, my wife, looked up, blinked a couple of times, then responded, "That's old. The contractor who did our bathroom renovation months ago. He left it behind in case we needed more work done." She sounded so certain, I almost believed her. But that note, that single line, * meet you again on Friday * burned into my vision. I snapped a photo of it on my phone. I don't even know why. It was an impulse, maybe a survival mechanism. Something told me not to trust. Her voice was too steady. She wore that forced grin, the one that overshoots sincerity. Everything about it screamed, "She's lying." I decided not to argue, just took a sip, nodded, acted indifferent. "Sure," I said. I guess he forgot it. My heart hammered, though. I felt the beat in my temples. She offered me toast. I didn't want it. The lumps in my throat were enough to choke me. Then I left for the workshop. That evening, I came home and installed a camera in the hallway closet. The idea came in a moment of cold clarity, like some unstoppable train in my mind. Something was off. She'd been jumpy, answering texts in the bathroom, staying up too late. I wanted the truth, even if I knew it would poison me. So I set up the camera, aimed it so it would catch the front door and any movements in the corridor. Then I went to bed, or tried to. She noticed I was restless, asked if everything was okay. I said, just busy with orders, and I saw in her eyes a flicker of relief, like she believed my lie. That irony nearly made me laugh in that dark, cynical way. Her lie was bigger, but we both pretended. A marriage of illusions. The next day, Friday, came too soon. I purposely stayed late at the workshop, distracting myself by finishing a pair of custom boots. My father taught me how to craft boots by hand when I was just a boy. Whenever my emotions run high, the smell of leather and the rhythmic pounding of the mallet helps me keep my thoughts in line. But that day, even my father's memory didn't soothe me. I returned home under the excuse of forgetting my wallet, parked down the street so she wouldn't notice. The living room was quiet. The lights were dimmed. I didn't see her, but the faint smell of cologne, male cologne, lingered in the air. Not mine. A cold sweat broke on my forehead. I retreated, got back in my truck, and I waited. A black pickup was parked 3 houses away. No one I recognized. I watched, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Minutes ticked by. Finally, that pickup pulled away, and I eased back into the driveway. Once inside, I pretended everything was normal. She smiled, told me dinner was in the oven. She didn't mention any visitor, and I didn't press her. After dinner, she went to bed, claiming a headache. I waited until the house was silent, then retrieved the camera from the closet. I locked myself in my workshop. Our garage turned into a shoe repair shop, and played back the footage on my laptop. The chair under me squeaked as I leaned forward, my breath shallow. The screen showed a grainy timestamp. 2:14 p.m. Catherine opened the door. In stepped a man in a faded denim jacket. Tall, broad, carrying a tool bag. They exchanged a few words I couldn't hear. Then laughter, soft touches. She tugged him by the collar, led him out of frame, presumably to the bedroom. My wife, leading a stranger. My mind short-circuited, but I made myself keep watching. They returned to the hallway maybe 20 minutes later. He kissed her neck. Her hand slid under his jacket. Then they laughed again. An intimate, breathy sound from her I recognized all too well. He whispered something in her ear. She bit her lip in a way that used to drive me crazy. And then the two of them stumbled into each other's arms, exchanging a hungry kiss. Watching that felt like stepping on broken glass. I'd never known such an immediate, visceral wave of betrayal. I realized they were about to go back into the bedroom again, but the camera only caught them disappearing around the corner. In that moment, my heart hammered so loudly, I thought it might burst. The screen went on, capturing emptiness. No more movement for a while. Until 3:02 p.m. They re-emerge, her hair slightly disheveled, his shirt half unbuttoned. A final kiss at the front door. Then he was gone. She lingered in the hallway, pressed her back to the wall, and slid down to the floor, breathing heavily, a smile ghosting across her face. She seemed satisfied. At peace, I slammed the laptop shut, my vision blurred with tears or rage or both. The air in the workshop felt stale. The leather strips smelled acrid, suffocating. I didn't fling anything. I didn't break a single tool. I just sat there, numb. Then I started laughing, in this hollow, half-crazed tone. My own wife. My partner of 27 years, giggling in the arms of some contractor. My mind started spewing black humor. At least she's gotten that faucet fixed properly, right? I shook my head, biting down on my lip so hard I tasted blood. I realized I was losing it. The whole foundation of who I was crumbling. I tried not to cry. Crying felt too raw, too weak. Instead, I just stared at my father's old photograph on the workshop wall. He was beaming there, proud, wearing his favorite denim overalls, arms around me. I felt that memory warp into something I couldn't bear to look at. So, I turned off the light. Enough for one night. The next few days were a blur of forced normalcy. I saw her every morning, making coffee, wearing that patient smile. I pretended I was gullible, that I believed in her stories about going out to run errands, or out of old business cards lying around. All the while, I documented everything in my head, every day lost to her systematic lie. At some point, a thought crept in. Asterisk, when did this start? Asterisk, so I pulled out the tattered calendar. I flipped back week after week, searching for patterns of her absences. I found Fridays circled in red, with small notes like bathroom repairs or maintenance check. Even months back, there were these casual references that I never questioned. That was my first real mistake. Not paying attention. Trust was easy. And trust, as it turns out, is an excellent cover for betrayal. Eventually, I started to wonder if my son was even mine. That might sound crazy, but your mind goes places in the midst of that kind of betrayal. You question everything. You remember that time your kid's hair color seemed darker, or the shape of his nose. All those paranoid thoughts crept in. So, I paid for a DNA test. Told Catherine I wanted to run some routine health checks. She signed off with a wave of her hand, barely glancing at the forms. Probably too busy texting her contractor. When the results came back, I opened them in the bathroom. Ironically enough. The same bathroom that started all this. And I read. Asterisk, he's my son. Asterisk, mine. The only piece of real truth I'd gotten in months. Something in me broke right then, but in a strangely good way, like relief hammered home. I whispered, he's my boy, pressed a palm against the cold tile. At least there was one honest anchor in my sinking universe. Still, it didn't fix the rest. Catherine and I were done. I tried imagining a confrontation, a screaming match, demanding reasons. But my anger had grown cold, like a blade hidden in snow. Instead, I typed out a short letter, more like a statement. Asterisk, to Catherine's parents, and to my own family. Our relationship is closed. Reason. Systematic lies. Asterisk, no shouts, no tears, no drawn-out conversation. I'd done my crying in silence. I stuck the letter on the fridge. Took the father's photograph from the workshop, along with the boots I'd hand-stitched last year. A sort of tribute to Dad. Then I walked out the door and never looked back. The day was bright, ironically cheerful, birds chirping. The world doesn't pause for heartbreak. It never does. I found a small cabin up north, near a quiet lake, surrounded by tall pines and the hush of nature, the kind of place we use to talk about visiting someday. When we retire, we'll get a little place on the water. Well, I got it alone. A single bedroom, a kitchen with chipped counters, an old dock out back that moans under the waves. Perfect for a man running from his own ghosts. I settled in. Day after day, I struggled to remember who I was before I met her. The nights stretched long, and the pang of betrayal visited me regularly. I miss my son. I wrote letters I never sent. I pictured him bounding around the living room, or asking me how to lace new shoes. I found a small job in a nearby town, repairing shoes at a local store. Folks around here don't ask too many questions. They just nod in greeting, comment on the weather, and move on. That suits me fine. Catherine wrote me texts, pages and pages of them, full of regrets, explanations, half apologies. I read them once or twice, realized there was nothing new to hear. She claimed it was a mistake, that she felt lonely, neglected, that she needed excitement and spark. She said it didn't mean she didn't love me. I wondered if she believed her own nonsense. Then I deleted every message. My phone beeped relentlessly for weeks, but I never replied. Neighbors told me eventually that she was losing sleep, complaining of a racing heartbeat, nightmares. Good, I thought, though a twisted part of me found it ironically comedic. Maybe her conscience was rattling around in there like a loose screw. Asterisk, one day, it might come undone, just like our marriage. Asterisk, black humor again. I guess that's how I coped. Time blurred. I tried to forget. but the emptiness in my chest sometimes felt like a gaping wound. Who am I now, if not her husband? If not the father in a neat suburban family? I used to be proud of being the stable one, the dependable craftsman. Now I was the sorry fool who got blindsided. My sense of manhood took a hit I couldn't articulate. Once or twice, I hammered nails into a new dockboard and laughed maniacally at the memory of that camera footage, her satisfied smile. That laughter turned into sobs, though, and I ended up slumped against the half-finished dock, wishing I could vanish. But a man can only lick his wounds for so long. Life demands some shape, even if you're drifting. So I set a routine. Wake at dawn, fix a pot of coffee, tend to any shoe repair orders from the store, then walk the edge of the lake. The water is calm in the morning, tinted with silver. I never thought I'd appreciate such profound silence. And then, one day, I found an envelope tucked under my cabin door. No return address, no name. Inside, just a small note. Asterisk, I need to see you. Please. Asterisk, Catherine's handwriting. Nothing else. I sat on my porch, stared at that scrap of paper, not sure whether to burn it or tear it up. In the end, I shoved it in a drawer. She wanted to see me. What for? Closure. A tearful apology. Some half-hearted attempt at reconciliation. My mind churned with 1,000 questions, but I had no answers, and I sure as hell didn't want to give her any more pieces of myself. A few days later, another letter arrived. Again with no return address. This time, more words. Asterisk, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I can't live with myself. Please talk to me. We owe it to each other. Asterisk, she ended it with a scribbled heart. This time, I laughed out loud. An ugly bark of a laugh that startled even me. The blackest humor imaginable. Asterisk, she wants me to console her for breaking me. Asterisk, I pictured her insomnia, her heart pounding in the dark, regrets swirling. For a moment, some twisted satisfaction flickered in me. Let her feel it. Let her know that betrayal isn't just a casual fling you bury. But then I felt dirty for that satisfaction. It's not who I wanted to be. I threw the letter on the table, ignoring it. The next morning, I almost expected to find her on my doorstep, but she didn't come. Good. I wasn't ready for whatever confrontation she had in mind. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The chill of autumn swept through the north. The trees flamed with color, then shed their leaves. In that time, I called a lawyer, started the slow crawl toward divorce. Sometimes I'd sit by the fireplace with a whiskey in hand, reading the official documents. Words like irreconcilable differences seemed too bland for what actually happened. Systematic lying was more accurate, but there's no neat box for that in legal forms. I'd sign them anyway. Pen trembling with anger, I thought I'd tamed. The father's photograph stared at me from the mantel, as if reminding me that I still had a backbone. A duty to carry on. He'd never run from a fight. But we can't all be him. Late one Saturday evening, I was tinkering with an old pair of boots. The phone buzzed. An unknown number. I picked it up out of habit. Hello. Silence. Then a breath. Mike? It's me. I froze. Just the sound of her voice conjured images I hated. I was about to hang up, but I heard a catch in her breathing. She sounded small. What do you want? I asked. I am here, she said in a trembling tone. I'm outside. Your truck is in the drive. Can we talk? I felt an immediate flush of anger. She'd driven all the way here, uninvited. My safe haven. No, we can't. I stood from my chair, marched across the living room. A part of me wanted to fling the door open, to let her see my face contorted in rage. Another part wanted to hide. But she insisted. Please, Mike. 5 minutes. Then I'll go. I gave a mirthless laugh. What's there left to say? The silence stretched. Then she let out a choked sob. I need you to know I never stopped loving you. My jaw clenched. Sure. I muttered, my voice dripping sarcasm. You showed that real well. Still, I opened the door. The night was cold, starless. She stood near her car, arms folded, shoulders trembling in the wind. Her eyes were shadowed, but I recognized the shape of her posture, somewhere between fear and regret. She took a few hesitant steps forward. I can't sleep. I can't eat. My heart thuds every night like a hammer. I deserve it, I know. I stayed on the porch, not inviting her in. You came all this way to tell me your heart is pounding too loud. She flinched at my acidic tone. No, I came to apologize. Properly. I stared at her. A swirl of memories warred inside me. The early days of our marriage, her warmth, her laugh. Then the footage of her with that man, Brian, pressed against the hallway wall. A bitter taste coated my tongue. You want absolution. That's it. She pressed her lips together. I guess I want forgiveness, but I know I don't deserve it. I huffed out a breath. My emotions were tangled. I wanted to lash out, to remind her how thoroughly she destroyed me. But I also saw the genuine anguish in her face. Maybe it was real. Maybe it was too little, too late. Catherine, I said, forcing calm into my voice, I don't have any forgiveness to give you. She nodded slowly, tears glistening. I'm sorry. I waited. She said nothing else, just studied me like she wanted to memorize my features. Then she turned to go. A pang of something, maybe pity, maybe leftover love, made me speak. Hey, she paused. Is he still in the picture? My voice sounded unnaturally calm. She shook her head. It was over the moment you left. I kicked him out. I can barely look at myself, let alone continue. She broke off, swallowing. I was stupid, looking for excitement. Brian was, I don't even know, a distraction from getting older, from feeling worthless. Stop, I cut in. Don't dump your excuses on me. She fell silent. The tension between us crackled in the night air. Finally, she turned again, this time without looking back. I watched her climb into her car and drive off, the headlights disappearing around the bend. I stood there for a long while, feeling a swirl of emptiness and an odd pang of triumph. She was hurting, and that gave me a twisted sense of retribution. Asterisk, what kind of man does that make me now? Asterisk, another question I didn't want to answer. I wrote again in that letter I keep for my son, though I wasn't sure I'd ever let him read it. Asterisk, I saw her tonight. She's a shell of who she was. I'm a shell of who I was. Maybe that's punishment enough for us both. Asterisk, weeks passed. Winter arrived, blanketing the lake with ice. I occasionally received updates from mutual friends about Catherine's mental state. She's going to therapy, one friend said. She's not coping well. Another friend insisted she was frantic to see me again, to explain. I told them. Explain what? That she took her clothes off for a stranger in my own home. My bitterness turned every conversation toxic. They stopped mentioning her after that. Suited me just fine. Then came the day the divorce papers were finalized. It was a cold, gray morning. I sat in the local courthouse, numb to my surroundings. Catherine was there, her eyes red-rimmed, wearing a dark coat. She tried to catch my gaze. I kept looking down at my father's boots. The judge asked the standard questions. We both said yes in monotones. And that was it. 27 years, sealed with a signature. She was slow to leave, stood by the door as if hoping for a final word. I walked right past her, out into the biting wind. My father's picture was in my truck. I stared at it for a moment, something in me shaking violently. Then I started the engine. I drove north, back to my cabin. The roads white with snow. Once inside, I knocked the slush off my boots, took a long swig of whiskey. The divorce was official. End of story. Asterisk, why don't I feel free? Asterisk, that question circled my brain, mocking me. Maybe the sense of identity I had was too wrapped up in the idea of being her husband. Now I was just me. Michael Mitchell, the man who can't decide if he's a worthless fool or a stoic survivor. I spent that night in front of the fireplace, letting logs burn down to embers. The wind howled outside, and as the final bits of flame flickered, I thought about the camera footage again, how I'd watched them. Asterisk, she's gone, asterisk, I told myself. Asterisk, she's not your problem. Asterisk, but logic means nothing to a wounded heart. My anger flared, old and new, mixing with regret, shame, maybe jealousy. I threw my empty glass into the fireplace, where it shattered. Sparks flew. And in the reflection, I saw a man who looked older, hollower, a husk of who he once was. Still, I had a final piece of business left. The father that I wanted to be to my son. I arranged a meeting with him in the city, neutral territory. The boy, well, not a boy anymore, but he'll always be my kid, approached me with hesitation. Dad, you okay? He asked. I forced a smile. I'm alive, I said. We ate burgers at a diner, made small talk about his college classes, his part-time job. I noticed he asked about Catherine. Asterisk, Mom, asterisk. Carefully. She says she's sorry. I nodded. I'm sure she is. He sighed, stirring his milkshake. It's complicated, Dad. I rested a hand on his shoulder, remembering the DNA test. You're not complicated. You're the best thing I ever made with your mom. None of what happened is on you. I saw relief in his eyes, a tension slipping away. We hugged in the parking lot when we parted. I assured him I was fine. He said, "You don't look fine." I shrugged. Someday. That conversation gave me a scrap of hope. Maybe I wasn't worthless, as long as my son cared. Maybe I could still salvage something real from the ashes. I returned to the cabin, hung up my coat, and stared at the letter pinned to the fridge. My official note from months back, the one that said, asterisk, our relationship is closed. Reason, systematic lies. Asterisk, it felt final. A declaration I needed to see daily. Time marched forward. The day came when the divorce settlement checks were cleared, and I was left with a modest sum, enough to expand my small shoe repair business if I wanted, or maybe invest in something else. People in town kept telling me, take a chance. Put up a real store. But I wasn't sure if I had the fight in me. I was building a routine. Nights alone, dawn by the lake, a few phone calls with the sun, the rest of the day in quiet monotony. It wasn't fulfilling, but it was safe, predictable. There's a kind of comfort in that for a man who's been burned. One Sunday, out of nowhere, I got a call from a friend in the old neighborhood. He said, "Hey, guess who's back in town? Brian, the contractor. He's asking folks if they know how to contact you." I froze. My teeth clenched. Why the hell would he want to see me? Not sure, my friend said. Just heard he's telling people you owe him some money, or that there's unfinished business from the bathroom job. My laugh was so sharp it hurt. Asterisk, unfinished business. Asterisk, perfect. I ended the call, mind racing. That bastard had the nerve to come around. Did he think I'd just roll over, pay him hush money? Or maybe he was looking for a fight. The old me would have confronted him immediately. But the new me, broken, cautious, didn't want a brawl. Or maybe I did. I wasn't sure. I just knew fury coursed through me again. A fresh wave of raw anger that I thought was dead. Something in me whispered, asterisk, this is your chance to bury the past. Or bury him. Whichever works. Asterisk, I tried to quell that impulse. But the anger kept me awake all night. Images of him with Catherine plagued me. The next day, I drove down to the old neighborhood. I found Brian in a cheap bar near the auto shops. He was easy to spot, tall, broad, wearing a worn leather jacket. He was nursing a beer. When he saw me, he smirked, a lazy grin that made me itch to wipe it off his face. "Mike," he said, leaning back in his seat. "Long time. You been hiding up north." I forced a tight-lipped smile. "Who told you that?" He shrugged. "Word gets around." He took a swig. "Heard you had yourself a meltdown." Figured you might want to talk. You know, man to man. I inhaled sharply, resisting the urge to smash his beer bottle into his jaw. You want to talk about the meltdown you caused. He had the gall to raise an eyebrow. Hey man, I never forced your wife to do anything. She came to me. That was it. I lunged, grabbed him by the collar, my fist itching to fly. He didn't resist. He just stared, eyes glinting with something like pity or amusement. That pissed me off even more. My knuckles met his cheek with a satisfying crack. He staggered, swore, but didn't hit back. The bartender shouted at us to take it outside. People parted as we stumbled to the exit. Outside, in the alley behind the bar, I shoved him against the wall. Why the hell are you here? I demanded, my breath coming ragged. You've done enough damage. He spat a little blood, wincing. I came for a job. The local housing market's picking up. Thought maybe we could bury the hatchet. You're a craftsman, I'm a contractor. There's money to be made if we team up. He gave me a cocky grin, then coughed, touching his bruised lip. Besides, I thought you might want your revenge. I stared at him like he was insane. What? He shrugged. I see the look in your eyes. I know the kind of anger that never goes away. You want to pound me into dust. Go ahead. I deserve it. But that won't fix you. He paused, reading my reaction. Trust me, I learned that lesson. I've messed up a lot of relationships. Maybe I'm just wired that way. My mouth dried up. The sheer arrogance, or maybe twisted sincerity, made me shake my head. You think a half-baked confession is going to fix anything? He shrugged again. I don't know. I figure you deserve to confront me. If it helps you move on, that's good for you. If you want me to vanish, say the word. I'll leave you alone. Some part of me realized he was right in one sense. Beating him senseless wouldn't restore my marriage or my dignity. I glared at him. I want you gone. He nodded, wiping a smear of blood from his lip. All right, man, he said quietly. I'll stay out of your way. He pushed off the wall, gave me one last look, hard to read, maybe regret, maybe something else, and walked off. I stared at his back, fists clenched, the savage part of me still wanting to run after him, bash his skull. But I didn't. My father's boots scuffed the dirty pavement as I turned and stalked away. My so-called revenge ended in a single punch. That night, after driving back to the cabin, I threw my coat aside, collapsed onto the couch, and realized I felt lighter, not happy, but less weighed down by hatred. The confrontation with Brian was ugly, but maybe necessary. It hammered into me that no matter what I do to him, it won't mend me. The only healing would come from rebuilding my own life. I picked up my father's photo from the mantel, stared at his proud grin. I did what I could. I murmured. The old man didn't answer, but I felt the slightest sense of release. Maybe it was all in my head. Time kept marching. I told the lawyer to finalize every last thread with Catherine, dividing property, ensuring we had no joint accounts left. Freed from the final legal tethers, I poured my energy into opening a small local workshop in the nearest town to the cabin. Named it Mitchell's Boots and Repairs. A modest sign, a neat row of boots in the window. People trickled in. Over months, the trickle turned steady. I earned enough to expand. Found a battered sign from an old shoe store, refurbished it with fresh paint. Painted the words carefully, letting the brushstrokes calm me. It felt good, focusing on something productive, forging a new identity. My nights grew quieter. Less whiskey, more steady work. Occasionally, I'd think of Catherine. The memory didn't stab as deep. I suppose that's the best I could hope for. A scar in place of an open wound. And then, on a cold, still evening, the kind where the lake is a mirror of black glass, I found myself sitting on the old dock, letting my feet dangle. I remembered how, at the very start, I said, I'd write this all down. Asterisk maybe for my son, maybe just to purge it from my system. So I rummaged in my workshop for a notebook. Found one half buried under scraps of leather. I wrote and wrote. About the empty bathroom shelf, the camera, the day I left. The DNA test, all of it. I wrote until my wrist cramped. I titled it as if it were a series of letters to my boy. But I knew it was more for me than for him. At some point, I reached the final words. They spilled out before I realized it. Asterisk, I don't know who I am anymore. Maybe that's okay. Because I have time. Time to figure it out. Asterisk, I closed the notebook, listened to the quiet lapping of the water. In that hush, I felt a shifting inside me, the faintest sense of acceptance. A few days later, after an ordinary shift at my shop, I drove back to the cabin. My phone buzzed, an unknown number again. Instinct told me not to answer, but I did. Hello. A woman's voice, soft, uncertain. Michael, I heard about your shop. I wanted to say congratulations. I recognized Catherine immediately. My gut twisted. How'd you get this number? She paused. Your son gave it to me. I'm sorry if that was a breach. That's between me and him, I growled. What do you want? My heart hammered, but not as viciously as before. She inhaled. I hope you're okay. I wanted to thank you for raising such a wonderful boy. He's my anchor these days. I resisted the urge to lash out. He's ours, Catherine. A silence. Then, yes, ours. Another beat of silence. I won't bother you. I just need you to know I'm proud of you for building a new life. You deserve good things. Her sincerity pricked at my defenses. I cleared my throat. Yeah, all right. Take care of yourself. Then I ended the call. No more words. This time, I didn't laugh bitterly or throw the phone. I set it aside, stared at the lake from my window. The sun was setting in brilliant oranges and reds. A part of me felt strangely calm. I carried on. Over the next season, I watched the snow melt, the ice thaw, the lake come alive with spring. Birds returned. My business found its footing. My son visited me occasionally, and we'd fish together off the dock, talking about life. He never brought Catherine unless I invited her, and I never did. I guess that's how we kept the peace, but the memory of betrayal no longer consumed me. I carried that scar like a story. It happened, it hurt, and I lived through it. Some nights, I'd have a dream. Catherine, in that hallway with Brian, her laughter echoing. I'd wake up in a cold sweat. Then I'd step outside, feel the pine-scented air, reassure myself that those ghosts couldn't control me anymore. And so, as I near the end of this long, winding letter, our story, my confession, my therapy session, I realize you, dear son, might pick it up someday. You might see the raw version of how I snapped, how I found out, how I left. You might judge me or pity me, or do neither. But if there's one thing I want you to know, it's that love, real love, doesn't vanish because one person fails. If we love ourselves, we find a way to stand back up. I used to think vengeance meant seeing my betrayers suffer, but the real revenge, I learned, is living well despite it all. Smiling at the sunrise on the lake, forging a pair of beautiful boots for some old rancher who can't stop thanking me. Laughing with you over a fishing rod as the line tugs. Asterisk, that's asterisk revenge. And it's sweeter than anything I could have imagined back when my rage was fresh. So I'll sign off here. The rest of my story is unwritten, and I'll figure it out day by day. But for now, I'm alive, and I'm discovering who I might be without the blindfold of illusions. Maybe that's enough. Now I'm going to close this notebook, blow out the lamp, and let the night take over. Everything's quiet, except for the steady rhythm of water lapping against the dock. My father's photo is on the mantel, watching me with that half smile. My boots squeak against the old floorboards. I flick the light switch. The cabin goes dark. Lights out.